What experience made you grow the frick up? When I was managing money so poorly that I was stealing toilet paper from work. I manage money just fine and I still do this. Being homeless. My parents were not good people and preferred to take vacations and eat out constantly while my mentally handicapped brother and I starved in an infested shack with no heat, water, electricity, or walls in one part of the house, with the 6 dogs that they adopted and similarly neglected. I frequently fought with them and tried to convince them to at least not buy a 5th motorcycle in favor of perhaps feeding my brother. I remember at one point near the end they parked their car behind mine in the driveway. The houses were such that I was totally blocked in. I asked them to move it so I could go to work, you know, to afford food for us to eat, and they refused. Okay, give me the keys and I'll move it. Nope. Move it 5 feet and I'll go through the lawn. Nope. Eventually I blew up because they were taking away the only chance I had to feed my handicapped brother and I walked to work, 3 miles. I was late and told them that if their car wasn't moved when I came back, I was burning the house down. It terrified me that I meant it. The final straw was when the house got fleas. I worked in food service and couldn't keep my job if I had fleas. I slept in my car and never went inside. I offered to put the dogs in a kennel and let my brother have the car to sleep in if they'd hire an exterminator. They wouldn't, but they went on a vacation to Vegas the next day. That was the last time I spoke to them. I left home as soon as they'd gone and never went back. For 9 months I was living out of my car. I would eat a loaf of bread a week, flavored with honey or Taco Bell sauce. I worked 2 jobs, 13 hours a day just so I could stay out of the cold. Pulling the plug on a family member and then having to settle the estate. If you get the paperwork all done in a year or less, it's a miracle. Coming up on 3 years, still running around with freaking pieces of paper to be signed, lost, folded, spindled and mutilated, stamped at great cost, mailed, stamped again, etc. I realized that my parents weren't heroes after all. They are in fact complete buttholes. Took me 50 years to realize it. They will never be pleased. They will never approve. There's nothing that I can do right or do wrong that will make them like me. It's a rigged game and I was a fool to play. My girlfriend left me when I was in the hospital. While there, she also broke into my apartment, stole my medication, and then ran off with a H-junkie. Soon after getting out of the hospital, the junkie assaulted me and I had to call the cops. We had been together for 2 years. That actually made me angry. WTF. My dad and older brother both getting into hardcore drugs and the realization that my mom couldn't make it on her own. This thread has made me realize that I'm still a child. Having a kidney transplant at 17. My life and expectations changed significantly, but I'm still healthy and alive 26 years later. Something very similar. Had a kidney transplant at 13. A lot of innocence was lost. My dad was an alcoholic when I was a young boy. He'd hide alcohol all over the house and often go to the bathroom for hours to just hide from my mother and drink beer without the fear of being lectured and nagged by her. One day I was watching a movie with my dad and brother when my mom came over, screaming at him because she found more hidden alcohol. He was pretty crap-faced at this point and must have reached some sort of breaking point because he just jumped to his feet and immediately shoved her, knocking her to the floor. She just got up and screamed, "I'm calling the police," before dashing through the kitchen towards the phone. He followed her and grabbed 2 knives from the counter while her back was turned. I must have been around 12 at the time, but the moment I saw him grab the knives I lunged at him and latched myself onto his leg to slow him down. This alerted her to the issue of him running towards her with a pair of knives and she bolted out the front door to the neighbors. He simply stopped at the front door and after several moments I followed my mother to the neighbors. About 5 minutes later my little brother showed up as well. I didn't think I was traumatized by the incident or that it had any effect on me, but looking back I noticed a fairly dramatic change in my personality. Ro, you may have saved your mother's life. When both my parents died in a car crash when I was 20. In college, my girlfriend of 3 years developed adult onset schizophrenia. Watching her eyes glaze over as she grabbed a knife and went for her wrist snapped me right the frick out of childhood. I was going to say something similar as my ex-girlfriend has bipolar 1 with psychosis. She went to the psych ward twice within a month's span. The second time was after she tried to attack me. We lived together. I was the sole caretaker and felt very alone. I finally broke up with her recently, but I'm still trying to figure out how to recover. Alone. I'm 22, but I feel like an old soul. Getting laid off while supporting my wife and child. I made around $34 an hour my second year out of the army. I was on top of the world. I could afford to have my wife stay at home with our infant child at the time. It wasn't 6 months later the company went under. My wife eventually found a $12 an hour job while I stayed at home receiving unemployment and searched for work. Took 5 months until I finally found a job. In the end I sold my house and moved into a smaller, much less appealing place. We're finally back on our feet 2 years later. My wife is back to staying at home, and I learned a lot of valuable lessons. My mom found out she had me when I was 9 or so. At the age of 12 I had to take care of her by myself, with also taking care of 2 little brothers. 3 days before I turned 19 she passed away, and on my birthday I had to go into where you confirm the body and wheel. That just made me realize that after that I had to grow up and make sure my brothers had a roof over their head. I'm 23 now. I'm a CNA and on my way to become a nurse. I'm dating a girl that has 2 kids and I love them to death like my own. My brothers are at the age where they can take care of themselves with a family member of mine. I think I did a pretty dang good job. I also would like to say thank you for the awesome person who gifted me gold. The person didn't want me to post their name, but thank you so much and you're awesome. Also thank you everyone else who has read and commented on this so far. Please understand that MS is a very serious disease, and if you or your loved one has it, make sure your family gets the knowledge of it all and see if they can help out as much as possible. It was really rough for my mother and there's not one day where I don't think of her. I didn't have the best relationship with her growing up for some reasons, but the time I spent with her meant the world to me. Without her I would have never found my passion for taking care of people and taking the route to one day be a nurse. Also I got a few message if I'm a boy or a girl. Just to clarify, I'm definitely a guy. Yes, you did. Good on you for stepping up like that. My brother attempted suicide when I was 12 years old. I realized at that moment that you have full control of your own decisions, whether that can be life or death, regardless of age. I was on Google looking up the best way to kill myself. After that I got on Reddit and some till I read reminded me of the power of negative association, so I quit my graveyard shift gas station job and moved out of my parents. Within 2 years I was married, good job, and bought house. Then within 2 years after that my wife left me, lost my job, and my dad died of cancer. And now I feel like I need to grow up again. Best of luck to you, man. As a fellow depressive, just a reminder, try your best to kick the darkness in the freaking teeth every day. Sometimes you fail, and that's okay, but try your best nonetheless. Some days are harder than others. Some days are unbearable. It's not your fault. Remember that daybreak comes around eventually. Hunger. Agreed. Living alone for the first time, realizing no one is going to help, no one is going to buy your groceries, and no one is going to make food for you can be a real sobering experience. You start by eating crap that's cheap and easy and hopefully get better and start to budget your money and time more wisely. I came from a household where my parents took my life a lot more seriously than theirs. I was everything to them. At times it felt as if, once I'm gone, their own life would make no sense. They never really let me do anything on my own. They even brushed my teeth and cleaned my poop. But that was all because of a reason. My body has a very weak immune system. I catch a cold quite easily, and fever was my only companion. Sleeping with the AC turned on makes my eyes red, and not washing my hands would lead to me being in the hospital. Soon it was time for me to go to college. My mom and dad insisted on moving to the city where my campus was. We would rent a flat and live together. I wanted to be independent, my own man, but I knew I had never spent more than a week without them. They were worried about my health, and I was worried about their life. The next thing I did was thank them for all they did for me. They're amazing parents, but they really need to learn to let go. I left home, moved in my dorm, fell sick almost on a monthly basis, but I did manage to take care of myself, and I did make it till the end of the day. Wow, that's insane. I'm glad you got the courage to have your independence. That's awesome. My father died from a massive heart attack at 57 years old last night. He died while I was doing chest compressions to keep his heart going. I'm so lost and disconnected. I don't know why I'm on Reddit. Maybe to escape reality for a bit. He was the breadwinner and the rock for my family. Last night I vowed to carry on his legacy and man the frick up. There has to be a catalyst for change. I just hate that this is the way it had to happen for me to grow up. I love you, Dad, and I miss you so dang much. You did all you could. If Reddit is what you need, stay as long as you need. Divorce after 2 years of marriage. It made me look at the reasons I got married, most of which were immature, and own up to mistakes. Now I know what I want in a partner and I'm willing to put the work in to be the partner that someone would want. Date your wife was the best advice ever given to me. Don't get lazy just because you think she's stuck with you now. Moving back into my mom's house after graduating college. It was the motivation I needed to finally find a decent job. That's gonna be me in about 2 months, minus the gaining motivation part. When I moved across the world when I was 15, it certainly fricked me over a little. Same when I was 14, moved from Texas to Saudi Arabia, a whole heck of a lot different. A week into my freshman year of college, my dad called me and said my mom had been diagnosed with multiple myeloma. We later found out that she had a rare, advanced, and aggressive form of the disease, which is already incurable. She died less than 3 months later. At the time of her death, her spine had broken in 4 places and collapsed. Her organs had failed, and she had bled into her brain. I spent the last 2 weeks of her life feeding her ice chips, watching her struggle to breathe, and forcing myself and my family to always smile around her and never, ever cry in front of her. My mom was the first dead person I ever saw. I raced from college to the hospital as quickly as possible, but I was too late to say goodbye. I walked into the ICU to find her lying so still under a quilt the nurses had made for her. Her left eyelid not quite closed, a sliver of blue staring lifelessly back at me, her skin cold and yellow and covered in purple splotches at the neck. Her cancer and death have changed my life forever, but they haven't destroyed me. I've learned what it really means to love someone, and I've learned, from her example, how to face life's obstacles with strength and optimism, despite feeling moments of weakness. I was absolutely terrified every moment of every day that she was sick, but she helped me discover true bravery within myself. Hearing my mother gambled our rent away when I was 11, the next month I started working. Going to college. My first month there I realized, through some rather ugly incidents with friends, that the depression and anxiety I had been dealing with for years wasn't going to go away just because I was out of high school, and that I needed to get help for it. Got help, and since then my mental health has been better than ever. I do still have moments where I'm so anxious or upset that I need to be alone for a while, but they're much easier to manage. I can relate to this. Currently in my last semester of college and my depression and anxiety has exacerbated the past few years. I keep thinking that maybe it'll get better after I graduate, but my happiness cannot be dependent on a situation or else I'll never find mental peace. Being sent to court. Yeah, when you realize you've fricked up and no one can save you now, that you might have a permanent mark that will close so many doors for you in the future, that kinda makes you rethink life. The day I found out my parents were addicts. Last year my girlfriend was suddenly diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer at a routine doctor visit. We were both 21, had been dating for 3 years. Life is different when you're faced with the mortality of the love of your life. Damn it, man, I wouldn't even know how to feel. My father died of AIDS when I was 11. Watching him waste away and having the cause be a scandalous family secret was incredibly difficult. When my dad passed. Prison. You've been spotted by the curious cow. Comment below and let him know what you're doing. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.